Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of His love, our trials in His light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe truth is larger than any one book or way. Religion and science go hand in hand. Integrity requires freedom of conscience. Diversity is something to celebrate. In the struggle for justice, we come alive. Our highest aspiration and calling is love. Growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever path you are on, you are welcome here. Please be seated. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again, just like the song says. We light our chalice in honor of all of that. Welcome once again to West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church. Happy Father's Day, everyone. Happy Father's Day. Thank you. Today we are celebrating fathers and father figures of all kinds whose protection and strength have been life-giving and life-affirming. We are so grateful. And then tomorrow is Juneteenth, designated a federal holiday in 2021. Juneteenth is the annual commemoration of the end of slavery in the United States after the Civil War, celebrated since the late 1800s. Happy Juneteenth. Thank you. West Shore has so much good that is going on, so many ways of getting involved, of connecting, of finding friends, of doing good work in this world. Check out the West Shore Weekly, the insert in your order of service about the events coming up. Just a couple items of note I want to underscore here. Please feel free to check out our Labyrinth Walk in Baker Hall after the services. Coffee hour will be in the fireside room today. Is that right? Where's Diane? Is that correct? There you go. Yep. Next Sunday is a special congregational meeting immediately after the service to vote on the nomination of Kelly Pincus to serve the last 2 years of D.R. Cody's term on the Board of Trustees. So you know who Kelly Pincus is by now, right? It's a congregational meeting just for her. Whoa! Please join us for that. It should be brief but important. Finally, this is my last Sunday service until I return from my summer leave this mid-August. And while I am away, I know you are going to have an awesome time with our summer speaker series. I can guarantee you that because I put that together for you. It is going to be an amazing summer speaker series that will inspire and delight in all sorts of ways. And we'll see you in mid-August. Now let me ask, if you are here for the first or second time and you don't mind people knowing, would you please raise a hand and let us know? Show some love to these people. Yeah. Now, I ask if you don't mind letting other people know, because if I was out there and I was visiting for the first time, I'd be just like, because I'm an introvert, actually. It's true. It's true. So we're glad, Dave Blazer, we're glad y'all are here. Now, let us greet each other warmly. If you see someone you have not seen before, met before, say hi. Go straight to them, say hi. Say hi to folks you know during coffee hour. All right, folks? And the greeting time will end with the sounding of the bowl. All right? Let's do it. Let's greet each other. Every week at West Shore, we take up an offering. It's good to remind ourselves from time to time that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. We know that it is through our financial gifts that we build our budget and fund our yearly programs and ministries of worship and religious education, pay our staff and professional religious leaders, and finance the comfort and the beauty of our physical home. We know that we could easily find other times in which to submit these financial gifts, but we pass the plate during our worship service to make a community expression of thanks for the blessings of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest at this most cherished hour of our week. Our offering says that the act of giving is an essential act of our expressing our spiritual well-being. It's as essential as anything else that we might do here on Sunday mornings. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. A reading of the proposed revision of Article 2 of the UUA bylaws.
Oh, Lord.
What?
This is going to be so boring.
No!
Well, convince me otherwise.
Well, Article 2 is like the Ten Commandments. I mean, our Unitarian Universalist version of it.
Oh?
Except that the ones we currently have may change pretty substantially.
You mean the ones that are in the front of every one of our hymnals and in the back of the order of service and pretty much everywhere?
Yeah. And you know what they say?
Who?
They.
Reverend Anthony.
Okay. A lot of people say this, but here's one version from the great writer Khalil Gibran. We are limited not by our abilities, but by our vision.
Whoa.
I know. And the proposed revision of our UU version of the Ten Commandments will adjust our vision, sharpen it in some ways, which in turn will change how we see things and what we do, not completely, but in some powerful ways.
Well, I'm not bored anymore. Let's start reading it.
Proposed revision of Article 2, Section C-2.1, Purposes. The Unitarian Universalist Association will devote its resources to and use its organizational powers for religious, educational, and humanitarian purposes. Its primary purposes are to assist congregations in their vital ministries, support and train leaders, both lay and professional, to foster lifelong faith formation, to heal historic injustices, and to advance our Unitarian Universalist values in the world.
The purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association is to actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. Whoa, that's completely new. I like that part.
I know, completely new. Let's keep going. Section C-2.2, Values and Covenant. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love.
Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love.
Inseparable from one another, these shared values are...
That's a picture. There are no pictures in our current purposes and principles.
Another change. The proposed revision is really different in some ways. Continuing. Interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. We covenant to cherish Earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships.
I'm glad that that phrase about the interdependent web of all existence remains.
Me too.
I've always loved it. Moving on, pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect.
Justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions.
Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Even with all the changes, nothing I'm hearing strikes me as not who we are.
Yeah, agreed. And some of the changes are adding things that have been always there between the lines but need to be made more explicit. For example, generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality.
Generosity is definitely not a word in our current principles and purposes, but it needs to be. Okay, here's the next, equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities.
And did you hear that? The word money. Not in the current version either. And here's yet another change. Remember how the current version talks about 6 sources for our Unitarian Universalist faith? Well, check out the way the new proposed version, how it addresses this. Section C 2.3, inspirations. As Unitarian Universalists, we use and are inspired by sacred and secular understandings that help us to live into our values. We respect the histories, contexts, and cultures in which they were created and are currently practiced. These sources ground us and sustain us in ordinary, difficult, and joyous times. Grateful for the religious ancestries we inherit and the diversity which enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom.
You know, there's something else they say.
They again, huh?
Yes. In any given moment, we have 2 options: to step forward into growth or step back into safety. Abraham Maslow, the psychologist, said that. And if all the proposed changes to Article 2 are about stepping forward into growth, then let's step forward.
Sometimes they can be pretty smart and seen. And now all are invited to come forward and to share from the heart. part of the challenge of going on vacation is I'm going to miss you guys. I'll be back. But the joys and the sorrows of this place, the concerns, the aspirations, they matter to me. You matter to me. Thanks for being here. Khalil Gibran has said, we are limited not by our abilities, but by our vision. Abraham Maslow has said, in any given moment, we have two options: to step forward into growth or step back into safety. Now, the last time our denomination faced its limitations and stepped forward into growth was 38 years ago, in 1985. That is when the current version of Article 2 was adopted through a democratic process at General Assembly by the thousands of Unitarian Universalists there in attendance. In that year, 1985, Ronald Reagan was the President of the United States and George H.W. Bush was Vice President. In that year, a gallon of gas cost $1.09. Michael Jordan was named the NBA's Rookie of the Year in 1985. 1985 was when New York became the first state to require that all front seat auto occupants wear seatbelts or face a $50 fine. 1985 was when Aretha Franklin, Billy Ocean, Chaka Khan, and Daryl Hall and John Oates were among the biggest pop artists. Popular Halloween costumes included Hulk Hogan, Elvira, Richard Nixon, and Ronald Reagan in 1985. That's a long time ago, would you agree? A lot has changed since 1985. And of course, some things have stayed the same, some things are perennial. They endure unchanged. But a lot has changed in 38 years. So, our need as Unitarian Universalists is to step forward into growth. The need is for a new vision. General Assembly is again upon us. And at this General Assembly, the multitude of delegates gathering face-to-face or virtually in Pittsburgh will have the first opportunity to vote on whether or not to adopt a new version of Article 2. And remember, like I said earlier, Article 2 is a little bit like our UU 10 Commandments. It is the vision that rallies us together and gives us a shared identity. More precisely, it does no less than 6 things. It defines who we are in a legal sense. It names our shared values and theology. It serves as a shared cultural touchstone. It lists concepts to teach and sources to draw from. It serves as a personal code of ethics. It provides language we can use to explain who we are to others and to hopefully draw their interest. In other words, the value it adds for us is legal, theological, social, educational, personal, and evangelical in nature. So this is important, folks. The vote coming up next week is huge, and depending on what happens, The second and culminating vote will take place at next year's General Assembly. Now, I see this sermon as informing everyone of some of the main things to know about. And as with every sermon, I am sharing my own perspective and point of view. West Shore will have multiple delegates attending General Assembly, either in person or virtually, who will vote on Article 2, including myself. And I hope that this will be helpful as we begin imagining what the proposed revision of Article 2 might bring to our churches and to our denomination as a whole. Who are the delegates going? Raise your arms. Thank you, delegates. Thank you. Yes, yeah, show them some love. That's great. The main thing I'm going to do here is, honestly, share some surprises. Surprises. The overarching one has to do with all of the deficiencies in the current Article 2 that became suddenly obvious to me when contrasted with the revised proposal. Reading the new vision was like traveling to a different country, seeing new sights, tasting new flavors, which all served to enable a greater perspective on what's in place currently. Now, it's not that home is all that bad, not at all. The current article has served us admirably. But times have changed. The new vision really is offering some incredibly positive things which speak to our needs now and to our hopes for our future. One particular surprise has to do with how emotionally cool and formal the language of our current Article 2 is. At one point, it says that the Unitarian Universalist Association shall exercise its corporate powers. But contrast this to the warmer language of the new vision. The warmer language of the Unitarian Universalist Association will devote its resources to and use its organizational powers for. The current version literally sounds like corporate speak. It even uses that word, corporation. But the newer version sounds a lot more like a church. Emotional coolness of language is also evident in how the current version of Article 2 speaks of principles. The newer version replaces the language of principles with values and covenant. And right there is the signal that our religion is not about individualism. It's about how we live together in communities that make possible, or that we make possible, through the promises we make to one another. Individuals who exist in abstract space can have principles. Individuals who exist in abstract space can have principles. But people who are bound together in mutual service to love and justice have values that they covenant to practice. Finally, in the current Article 2, we are asked to affirm and promote our principles, whereas in the new version, each value we are asked to practice in covenant gets its own active, colorful verb. We are invited to honor, to celebrate, to work, to adapt, to cultivate, to declare. That's some vibrancy. There's some real vibrancy there. The new vision, in short, is an invitation to greater emotional warmth and vibrancy. Now, a second surprise. It has to do with the issue of our denomination's purpose and the fact that the current version of Article 2 doesn't really articulate it fully. What the current version says is this: the primary purpose of the association is to serve the needs of its member congregations, organize new congregations, extend and strengthen Unitarian Universalist institutions, and implement its principles. Which sounds good enough. But when put side by side with the new vision, you realize the incompleteness. The current version names only proximate purposes. Proximate purposes. That is how the organization will work. That's what the current version names, just that. But that doesn't answer the main purpose question, which is why something exists to begin with. What is the end goal it is trying to achieve? The big goal, the big kahuna. There is no answer to that coming from the current Article 2. But the revised version makes up for it wonderfully. It says, the purpose, the big purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association is to actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. Yes. Woo! Come on! You know what I'm saying? Whoa! I mean, sure, the UUA can serve member congregation needs. It can organize new congregations and so on. But what I really want to know is why? And only the new vision gives that answer. The transformation of the world through liberating love. Now, my preaching script has the word wow in capital letters right there. I got ahead of myself, folks. I got ahead of myself. I'm going to say it again. Whoa! That's my bad effort at a wave, at a stadium. All right. Speaking of love, yet another surprise relates to the many values and practices that have come to be central to us as Unitarian Universalists, which are only mentioned in passing in the current Article 2 and are not centered like they need to be. Love is one of them for sure, but let me mention a few others first. Take that word covenant. The word sums up all that is good in the saying, we need not think alike to love alike, which is beloved wisdom held in the hearts of hundreds and thousands of Unitarian Universalists across our denomination. We here at West Shore love that so much. We put those words right above Baker Hall. You know what I'm talking about? Now, in the current Article 2, the word covenant is a part of the phrase, we covenant to affirm and promote. And honestly, it's easy to skip right past it to that good stuff, which is all those 7, or at least now 8 principles. But in the revised Article 2, the new vision, the practice of covenanting gets its own paragraph, which goes like this. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation, and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. And then, with each of our value statements comes a separate covenant statement. In the new vision, our central practice of covenanting is not something you can just skip over, to skip right past to get to the good stuff. It is the good stuff. Another important concept that is just mentioned in passing in the current Article 2 is culture. The word culture. In the current Article 2 version, culture is mentioned as follows. Direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures. Okay. But in the proposed Article 2, culture becomes a thing for us to acknowledge and address in all that we do, because culture is simultaneously a source of joy and beauty, as well as a cause of terrible division and strife. And so, in the new vision, we are asked to celebrate the value of pluralism, which is to, and I quote, celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We are asked to work for the value of justice, which is when we, quote, work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. And as for the many sources of spiritual inspiration we draw from, we are asked to, and I quote, respect the histories, contexts, and cultures in which they were created and are currently practiced. In other words, stop it with the cultural misappropriation, right? As with covenant, culture, it is not a thing to be lightly passed over. And now, let's talk about love. One of the things that the Unitarian Universalist Association Board of Trustees charged the folks responsible for crafting the revised version of Article 2, the new vision, what they charged that group to do was to address the issue of love. And I quote, "The Commission on Appraisal, in its report, Engaging Our Theological Diversity," cites Robert Miller's study of Unitarian Universalism, stating, "UUs ranked loving as an instrumental value and mature love as a terminal value more highly than did respondents from other groups, religious or non-religious." Dr. Cornel West says that justice is what love looks like in public. Community is great too. Our commitment to personal, institutional, and cultural change rooted in anti-oppression, anti-racism, and multiculturalism values and practices is love in action and should be centered in any revision of Article 2, unquote. Now, that's a huge chunk, that's a huge quote, but what is essentially happening here is a major recent report on where Unitarian Universalism stands theologically now, has found that love is a central value for Unitarian Universalists, and this makes us different from others, which is surprising. You would think everybody would want to center love, but apparently not. I mean, are you hearing that? How interesting is that? Love here is also explicitly linked to justice making and to the 8th principle imperative of fighting against all sorts of structural oppressions. Love is central. In our current Article 2, the phrase, "the transforming power of love," is mentioned only as a part of the second source, which is about words and deeds of prophetic people. And that's it. But in the new vision, love takes center stage. Oh my God, we've already seen that in the ultimate purpose given for the Unitarian Universalist Association's very existence. Again, the purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association is to actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. Oh! 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 And then there's this statement, again, from the new vision, which says it maybe even more strongly than that. It says, love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Now people, nothing in the current Article 2 comes close to the theological richness of what we are hearing right now. There is so much here to plumb. There are millions of sermons in that idea of transforming love. So much to deepen into, to celebrate, liberating love. It is both a reality and power, which is also a discipline of daily practice. Now, make no mistake, at least for me, this may be one of the greatest achievements of this new vision, this theological richness. It may help us counteract a thing I call the problem of social justicism. Social justicism, which is where justice activism is seen as taking the place of spiritual growth and theological depth. Social justicism. The UUA's recent report, Widening the Circle, calls this out itself. This official report calls social justicism out itself. It says this, I quote, "Justice-seeking practices of Unitarian Universalists are often not grounded on spiritual or ritual principles. Instead, justice-seeking takes the place of ritual and religious life. Justice practices," the report goes on to say, "cannot be used as surrogates for deepening our spiritual lives." Quote and unquote. Indeed, it is my belief that unsupported by spiritual and theological depth, justice work becomes practically unsustainable, and in the end, it does more harm than good. Let me share one more surprise. I was surprised to see the degree to which the current Article 2 neglects to directly encourage the material building up and sustaining of our congregations. Maybe the closest we get to that is in the current Article 2's second principle: acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. But let's be frank. You have to read pretty hard between the lines to find anything here about people supporting congregational life through concrete gifts of time, talent, and money. Oh yeah, not so in the new vision. In the proposed Article 2, you find a completely new value: generosity. Generosity, says the new vision. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. And then you have another value, that of equity. Listen to this, quote, equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent worth and dignity. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Money! It's the new vision. A comprehensive comparison and contrast of the current Article 2 and the proposed revised Article 2, what I'm calling the new vision, must make note of words that are in the current vision or current article and are absent in the revised one, and vice versa, right? Which words are appearing, which words are disappearing, which words are new, and so on. I guarantee you, a word that appears nowhere in the current version is money, but it is there in the new vision. And there it needs to be, because we have got to start wrapping our minds around how money is energy and how church exists to channel energy of all sorts, including money, into acts of liberating love. You see how this is coming together? Acts of liberating love, channel energy towards acts of liberating love, putting our energies in service to that. A better future immediately becomes possible for us when more of us get that. When more of us get that. Preparing this sermon has been quite surprising. Honestly, I was not sure what to expect from the new vision. But I'm going to vote for it. Even though there are some things in it that do concern me, and I want to be as brief as I can in this moment to touch on some of these concerns. One concern is the loss of specific named sources of our faith. In the current Article 2, we name mystical experience, we name prophetic people, we name Judaism and Christianity, we name the world's religions, we name science and humanism, we name earth-based spirituality. The inspiration for the chancel screen right behind me comes directly from the current version of Article 2. Those are the named sources inscribed there in Article 2, the current version. Yet in the new vision, there is no listing of specific sources, no listing at all. And I gotta admit, in one sense, I totally get that. Fact is, the Unitarian Universalist Bible is so big that only something as large as an internet-based Wikipedia could hold it. That's my contention. The complete list of all our sources would go on for a very, very long time, right? A very long time. The new vision honestly acknowledges that. It just does. However, if Article 2 is meant to be educational and evangelical in nature, right, 2 of those 6 functions, if it's meant to be educational and evangelical, the loss of specific named sources makes it less helpful in those 2 regards, okay? Now, my second concern is more serious. It relates directly to the New Vision's statement about equity. Okay, the value of equity. To remind you, quote, equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Now, I agree wholeheartedly with the New Vision's affirmation that every person has the right to flourish, okay? But when the New Vision goes on to say that our congregations need to be capable of including anyone in an unlimited way, well, that's where I balk. I balk right there. See, the fact is you can interpret the equity value to go far beyond ensuring physical accessibility. And that's a big part of the meaning of that equity value. I mean, this is not accessible for people in wheelchair. You can't get up to the choir lot, right? I mean, and that equity values, you know, I think a lot of people would see it as speaking to specifically things like that. But you know, you can interpret that language to go far beyond ensuring physical accessibility. Okay, and this is where my concern is coming from. You can interpret this value to mean absolute, unconditional acceptance of anyone who comes into this space, no matter what they might be bringing. But what if the kind of person we're talking about is a genuine bully who insists on having their own narcissistic way and creates chaos and confusion in their wake? Are y'all following me? I mean, is that equity principle telling us that this church, all our churches, in the spirit of equity, must give up healthy boundaries and not protect itself from destructive, toxic people? It's absolutely unacceptable. The only kind of entity that could offer full, unlimited inclusion to absolutely anyone is God, if God exists. No church has the power of a God. Churches are finite and mortal in their own way, and they need healthy boundaries, and they need to insist on accountability to those healthy boundaries. The equity value needs to be rewritten so that it does not encourage this sort of confusion. I just hear too many people blithely speak about how churches need to accept just anyone unconditionally. Once in a while, someone can come, and they can come into our midst like a Donald Trump, like he came into American political leadership. And look at where we are. I didn't want to name him, but what a great example. Right? Those people exist. They can kill churches. Healthy boundaries and accountability to those boundaries makes all the difference. Our equity principle needs to be rewritten. I have even more concerns, but there's not enough time to explore them here. The biggest concern I have is one that I will need a sermon to share with you. I will say that this particular concern happens to be about every version of Article 2 we've ever had. So it's not just about the proposed New Vision, it's about all of them. So more about that when I get back from my summer leave. For now, despite my concerns, I'm going to vote yes. I'm going to vote yes on this New Vision. All of the current principles are either explicitly mentioned or implicitly present in the New Vision. That beautiful phrase, inherent worth and dignity, becomes, in the New Vision, we declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. That beautiful phrase, interdependent web of all existence, persists as we honor the interdependent web of all existence. that beautiful phrase, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, continues on as our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The new vision carries forward what has been essential and inspiring in the current Article 2, and it adds so much to this of incredible value. It centers the sorts of things that need to be centered right now, especially culture, covenant, love. 1985 was 38 years ago. We were just instituting the seatbelt law back then. 38 years ago. Now, our abilities are far greater than that 1985 Article 2 vision allows for. Now is the moment to step forward into growth through a new vision. May it be so. Let us now say our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. Why the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I fly the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, make of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. Won't you join me in swaying? Feel the music in your body. I give thanks to the waves upholding me. Hail the wave winds urging me on. Read the infinite sea before me. Sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. Wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. So what I wish for you is this. We did this a number of Sundays ago, and I loved it. This right here. The knowledge that we are well, fundamentally well, that there is a spark, a light. Some people call it the echo of the divine, the Atman, within us. And fundamentally, there is a space of wholeness within us, which we can come to know, and it is a source of comfort, and it is like we're on that boat, that blue boat, home boat, and we are held, and we are okay, fundamentally. I wish for you as you leave this place, that you have that feeling. You guys have stopped swaying. I'm the only one swaying. But it is that feeling of nurture, that feeling of comfort, that feeling of being at home, no matter how hard life can be, no matter what craziness we read of in the New York Times or see on TV or wherever you get your news, that there is this grace that we can rest in, and it energizes us to keep showing up every day to whatever the problems and challenges are, whether in our work, our personal life, politically, wherever that may be. So I wish this for you, just this visceral sense. This visceral sense. Does that make sense? Go in peace.